Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Southern Fried Crime. Get ready and buckle up. You are in for a ride today. We're going all the way back to the year 1936 in Tokyo, Japan, where "If I Can't Have You, Nobody Can" takes on a whole other meaning. So sit back, buckle up, get yourself a little something to eat and drink while I tell you about Sada Abe and her boyfriend Kichizo Ishida. An unsuspecting police detective walked into a Tokyo hotel room on May the 20th, 1936. He didn't know what he was going to find. Perhaps it was going to be a drunk who passed out and forgot to check out on time. What he didn't think would happen would be a gorgeous 31-year-old woman named Sada Abe would be in the room. She told the detective who she was, and yet he didn't believe her. Days earlier, a man had been found minus his genitals. It was suspected the killer was his lover, Sada, who had not been seen since Kichizo Ishida had been found missing his member. But here in front of him now was a woman claiming to be Sada Abe. An unsuspecting police detective walked into a Tokyo hotel room on May the 20th, 1936. He didn't know what he was going to find. Perhaps it was going to be a drunk who passed out and forgot to check out on time. What he didn't think would happen would be a gorgeous 31-year-old woman named Sada Abe would be in the room. She told the detective who she was, and yet he didn't believe her. Days earlier, a man had been found minus his genitals. It was suspected the killer was his lover, Sada, who had not been seen since Kichizo Ishida had been found missing his member. But here in front of him now was a woman claiming to be Sada Abe. I can just imagine the police detective standing there in shock at the woman standing in front of him, pistol out and pointing it at her. In my head, I hear him say, "Prove it," and prove it she does. She reaches inside of her dress and comes out with a brown paper parcel. And then the detective knew the woman in front of him was telling the truth, for she set the package on the bed in front of her. Pointing the gun at the woman, the detective slowly opens the package now in front of him. Inside the package were the severed genitals of Kichizo Ishida. The detective quickly took Sada into custody. Kichizo Ishida was a restaurant owner who had been found 2 days earlier on May the 18th, 1936, in another Tokyo hotel room by a chambermaid. Can you just imagine that poor woman trying to do her job, and she walks into a room and finds a dead man with his junk cut off? I don't know about you, but I think I might have just pissed myself right then and there. When the detectives came to examine the body, they found Japanese symbols carved into Yoshida's leg, and the symbols were written in blood also on a nearby sheet. The symbols were Sada and Kichi Futari Kira. When translated into English, the symbols translated to say Sada and Kichi, inseparable forever. The name Sada had been written on his left arm. When the detectives looked at the lower half of the body, they could tell the testicles and penis had been removed from the dead man in front of him. But who was this Sada? Detectives had to act quick before any more men went and had their testicles and penises removed by a crazy woman. Sada was the last child born into a wealthy family in Kanda, Japan. She was a willful teenager who slept around with many other teenage boys and grown men. Her father sold her as a geisha to a brothel in Yokohama, Japan. I guess he figured if she was going to act that way, then he was going to make a little money off her and get rid of her for good. For most all of her life, Sada, in one way or another, made money off of using her sexual appeal. In her late 20s to early 30s, Sada became the kept woman of a rich older man. She never wanted for anything when she was with this man. He gave her anything she wanted, but Sada was still bored, and this led her to taking a job as a waitress in one of Yoshida's restaurants. Though Yoshida was a married man who had children, he was an insatiable womanizer who was unfaithful to his wife. Sada had a high sexual appetite as well, so it wasn't too long before she and Yoshida were having a full-blown sexual affair. And it wasn't just regular sex either. It was some of the most kinky stuff you could imagine. Think David Carradine, ropes around your junk kind of stuff. Yoshida and Sada were meeting up anywhere they could for their kinky sexual sessions. She would hit him with cords until he was just about ready to pass out. She would choke him as well to the point of unconsciousness. Then she would let loose, and they would have the most powerful orgasms possible. The police surmised that the sex games had just gone too far, and Yoshida died as a result of them. When asked why she cut off his genitals, she replied, "They belong to someone I love. Everything of Yoshida's had become mine. I don't know about y'all, but if my significant other died, I would mourn them and bury them whole, not cut off his or her junk." Sada was tried and convicted of the Japanese equivalent of manslaughter and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. However, she was released in 1941. With her help, a book was written in 1947 detailing her sexual exploits. It became a bestseller, and there was also a movie made based on the book. Perhaps the oddest part of this whole case would be after everything with the trial and the sentencing was said and done, was Yoshida's genitals were put on display for the whole world to see. The last time they were put on display was sometime in the late 1950s in a department store exhibition sponsored by none other than the Department of Health and Welfare. That's all for today's case. Remember to like and subscribe for more true crime content. Bye-bye for now.